Hello, and welcome to our next Facebook Live in conversation with the lovely Carrie. Hello, welcome back. I've missed you. Oh, I was very happy to see you here. And today we are talking about the wonderful Witches Unleashed, which is new out today. Your almost birthday book.
That's right.
Yesterday, so happy birthday for yesterday as well.
Thank you. It's been the week of me being obnoxious.
Yay!
Like, talk about
me. Yay! That's what I do for my birthdays. I let them be a week long. Oh, well, yes. Welcome back to our little live talk where we're going to be discussing all things Ghost Rider and witches and more about the book. But before we get into that, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into tie-in fiction, what you're writing, etc.?
Yeah. I got into tie-in fiction through role-playing games. Actually, my first paid writing gig years and years ago was for a vampire game. And I was in college and I thought, well, I'll just do this as a hobby. I really enjoy writing, but normal people do not make it as writers. And so I got a job and I dressed like an adult. And but after my kids were born, we were like, you know what? I'm gonna give this writing thing a go. And so I started out writing my own stuff, but got back into tie-ins through games. And I signed with you guys intending to write for a game. And I signed the week you announced your deal with Marvel.
Oh.
I sent in this obnoxious email like, please let me pitch. I will show up in cosplay, which is pretty impressive considering, you're across an ocean. But I would have done it. I really would have done it.
Oh, amazing. Yes, and you've got lots of Marvel now going on. You've got another one next month and then one next year as well that we Oh, lots of Marvel. Oh, we've already got questions coming in the chat as well. Hello, Sam. We will get to your question in a second. I'm going to just start tell us a little bit about the book itself. So Witches Unleashed, which is out today in US paperback and out in the UK in paperback in February next year. Out globally on ebook as well. So if you are in the UK, you're like, curses, I want to read this. You can. You just have to read it on ebook at the moment. But this is it in all its glory. And before we went live, I said, oh, look, I could be like Ghost Rider with my flame there. So that's true. I could be Ghost Rider. So yes, tell us a little bit about Witches Unleashed.
Witches Unleashed is about... There's a point in the comics where Johnny Blaze has been sent to hell and he comes back. And he brings Lucifer with him by mistake. But Lucifer is, Lucifer, and big and powerful. And so the process of coming here shatters him into 666 shards. And in the comics, you saw, I don't know, maybe 20 of them. So this is about one of the shards you didn't see in the comics and pairs Johnny up with some characters from one of my favorite short run comics called The Witches. And it's 3 badass Marvel mystics, Jennifer Kale, Satana Hellstrom, and Topaz. And they're in this like Charlie's Angels type group. And Doctor Strange is Charlie. And in the comics, they get ticked off at Doctor Strange. And so they leave him. So now they're on their own, and I decided to see what would happen if we put Johnny Blaze together with the 3 of them and sent them off to fight.
So what made you pitch us Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, over all the characters that we have available? What was it about him and the witches?
Well, it's really funny because the stuff that you guys have asked me to write is all stuff that I've been... like I'm a Marvel fan. I have the wall of nerdery behind me. It's kind of obvious. But there are a few characters and lines that really mean something to me. And when I sent in this last round of pitches, there was one Ghost Rider, and I was like, please pick that one, because my dad was a biker, and my grandpa was a motorcycle mechanic, and so I picked up my first Ghost Rider comic, knowing nothing about him. Way back in the day when I was not so old and busted, and because it had a bike on the cover, and I was like, oh, this will be cool. I'll show my guys, and just fell in love with him. So I've been a Johnny Blaze fan about as long as I've been an X-Men fan. Those were the ones, So the fact that I got to write them, I actually get goosebumps talking about it. How sad is that?
No, it's lovely.
Yeah.
It's really sweet. Well, so tell us a little bit more about the witches. So we have Jennifer Kale, Satana Hellstrom, and Topaz.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Give us a little
Jennifer Kale is she's a part of a family that's full of really powerful witches, and they've been entrusted with this book called the Tome of Zhered-Na. And Zhered-Na was a famous sorcerer, and the book contains magic that hasn't been seen elsewhere, like ever. And it also contains a demon. And they're keeping this book and keeping the demon safe because the demon feeds on mystics, and that's bad. Jennifer is also Johnny Blaze's cousin. So there was a connection there, which I was like, they don't always get along. Let's see what happens. She's also really protective of the book because it has killed a lot of her family, and she doesn't like that.
Yep.
So, like you do. So there's definitely some tension there if you have to, say, use the book to find Lucifer.
Yes.
Satana Hellstrom is, she was from the old horror comics, and they pitched her as the Devil's Daughter. She's half demon, half human, succubus, and depending on which comics you read, she either looks like an emo Jubilee, or the one that we've got on the cover, which I really love. She's got the curling devil horn, and she looks like a badass.
Yeah.
And she struggles to contain her urges. She doesn't want to be anything like her father, but she also thinks that Jennifer and Topaz are kind of too straight-laced.
Yeah.
Topaz was again another character from way back, but one of the things about her story is she doesn't remember anything about where she came from, and she was Doctor Strange's protege, and there are references to a relationship that maybe didn't go so well, which, teacher and student.
Yeah.
So she's trying to figure out who she is. She has no idea who she is, what she wants. She's never really had the opportunity to figure it out for herself. So you put the three of them together, and in the comics, they spend the whole time fighting and arguing like toddlers. Because they're under a lot of stress, and they've been shoved together, and nobody will really explain why. So I wanted to see what happened when you fast forward a little.
Yeah, give them a chance to get to know each other.
Yeah, give them time to gel. So they turned out to be kind of like a family. They don't always like each other, but they love each other, and they'll go to bat for each other when things get rough. And I like to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the subject of characters, we'll put Sam Blimps in here. It says, how do you approach tackling characters, make compelling characters, or find themes and ideas that help you build the characters around?
That's a great question, and it's somewhat unique for tie-in fiction, I think, because your characters are at least the main characters are pretty much set for you. These were all characters that existed in the comics, and so I read a lot of them and tried to think of what would be a natural way for these characters, especially the witches, who don't appear in a lot of comics since then. You know, what's the logical next step for them? Where do they go next? And really, you're looking for similarities and connections. So, like I said, I started with the fact that you've got a family connection between Johnny and Jennifer. And then if you think about it, all the other characters have like a lot of their trauma or baggage has to do with family. Satana's father mistreated her because he's the devil.
Yep.
You know, and she doesn't want to be anything like him. And Topaz doesn't know who her family is. And you put all those things together. And then, of course, you have Johnny Blaze, who has lost his family because, he made a deal with the devil. And that didn't turn out so great for him in some ways.
Strange, that.
Yeah, spoiler. So you're really looking for connections, things that are similar or things that are completely the opposite, because that's where you create dramatic tension and story.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it.
Yeah. So we've got another one from Graham who's come on and said, what is your writing process? Does it differ for a tie-in and your original fiction?
Well, so I used to be, writers will often talk about whether they're a pantser or a plotter. And a pantser is you just kind of sit down and you're like, I think I'm going to write a book about this person. And then you do. And you see what happens while you write. And then, a plotter does note cards on a wall or whatever. And I used to be a pantser until I sold my first book. And the editor said, this was great. Please rewrite everything after chapter 8. And it was like 2/3 of the book. It was painful, but she was right. So now I outline, and my outlines are usually 15, 20 pages long. I start short, and then each progressive one gets a little bit longer because it's much easier to spot, it doesn't make sense that Johnny Blaze would do X when it's a page long than when it's 350 pages long. So, you fix the problems when it's short. And then as it gets progressively longer, you can make sure it all gels together. Mm-hmm. And that works really well for tie-in fiction, because in tie-in fiction, you have to give all the details. So I write one of these, then I make it shorter. Because Marvel was like, yeah, that's a little too long even for us. Thanks. I think one of them said, wow, this is meaty. Yeah. Yep. So, you go back and forth to make sure that it does what they want it to, and that you have all the details right, because you can read comic after comic after comic, which I do, and sometimes something will slip by. So it's really nice to have that back and forth conversation about what the book should be before you even start writing it.
Yeah. So back to the book then. Whereabouts in the Marvel universe or multiverse does this story actually sort of take place?
Well, there's 2 comic lines that it's based off of. The Witches was a miniseries, so there are only 4 comics, and so it happens after that. And then in Ghost Rider, there's a storyline from, it's like 15 years old, but it's called the Vicious Cycle storyline, which is about those 666 shards. Yeah. So actually, if you read the book, you can figure out it happens between this issue and that issue. I like having that much specificity, because then I know this thing has not happened. I don't have to refer to it. And it makes it easier on me to know exactly where the character is. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's happened before this story? What's happened to the characters? Is there any, so in those few sort of comic book series where they're trying to get some of the 66.
Yes.
What has happened so far?
Well, it's been very eventful. Actually, in the couple of issues right beforehand, I agree, Graham, you are right. In the couple of issues before where my book is set, Dr. Strange shows up and is trying to talk Johnny out of chasing down the rest of the fragments. Because when he does, Lucifer's power gets concentrated in the ones that are left. And so Lucifer's idea is, I'm going to send 666 of them, and it splits me up, right?
Yeah.
And then Johnny Blaze is going to come and kill 665. And then all my power will be concentrated into one. And now I'm free. So that's the whole
He's smart, isn't he?
Right? So Strange is like, don't do this. It's way easier to deal with, 5 or 6 partial Lucifers than one full strength Lucifer.
Yeah.
And so it's like Lucifer Light is way easier. And they fight, and it's a bit of a spoiler, but it's so old that I think it's probably reasonable to say it. Johnny Blaze kills Doctor Strange. Dead.
Oh no.
Yeah. So then when he shows up to talk to the witches who were put together by Doctor Strange, that's a thing.
Yeah, I suppose that it's on one part sort of there'd be like a little bit of relief, but as you were saying, like one of them has like a past relationship history thing, and not a
well, and Strange does obviously he survives. Yeah. That's you're dead, but then you're not, because we want more.
Yeah.
And so he's fine, but it also means that out of all the people you're going to call to help with your mystical problem, Doctor Strange is not on the list.
Yes.
Because one of you just killed him.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty mad about that.
Yeah, not thrilled. Johnny is not going to get an invitation to his birthday party.
No. So the story hits on a lot of the characters' personal demons, as well as actual demons out in the world. Who was the most difficult to write, and who did you have the most fun with?
What's funny is that when I started writing the book, I assumed I would have the most fun with Satana because she's a smart aleck, and she's kind of the instigator, which is fun to write. And then I thought I would have the most trouble with Topaz because she's kind of a blank slate. She has been in comics. She's she's made appearances, but she's always been following orders from somebody else. Yeah. And so she doesn't really have the same level of development that the other ones do. But it turned out that probably Topaz was one of my favorites to write. And Jennifer was the hardest because she's quiet.
Yeah.
She plays her cards close to her chest. She's determined to do her duty, and she doesn't really talk. So making her shine with all of these other really extreme characters was something I needed to have editorial help with.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine like in a comic, when she doesn't talk, you can still sort of see what's happening. So, yeah, trying to move that onto page. So.
Yeah.
Yes. So, next question I've got, you've already answered, so I'm not going to ask that one. Which is, yeah, well done you. Yes.
Hey,
what was your favorite scene to write?
Well, the one that got me was the first time I got to write Johnny Blaze transforming into Ghost Rider, because in the comics it's huge, it's visual and it's cool looking. His flesh boils away, and you can see the skull and then the fire and then all the things, right? It's just really cool looking. And when you think about it though, out of all the superpowers to have, that one kind of sucks because your flesh boils away. Probably not pleasant to experience. And then you're taken over by a spirit of vengeance, and you just kind of got to ride shotgun, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there are also some depending on which storyline you read, Johnny has more or less control over what he is doing. Probably you can explain that by, how strong the spirit is at the time and how weak it is. So sometimes he has control over his actions and other times he doesn't. And then how do you handle that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting to write that the first time was really, really cool.
So Sam asks, that's the one. With tie stories, do you ever feel like wanting to reinterpret a character in a significantly different way, or is that not a problem for you?
I think right now I've kind of lucked out because the stories that I've told fit into existing storylines. So, like, Marvel Untold is about the scenes you didn't see.
Yeah.
And so you kind of know what happened. And I have to get him, like, Johnny Blaze is at point A at the beginning of the story, and I know I got to get to C. So it's not very tempting to move him in a different direction because I know where the end point needs to be. I think that one of the things that Marvel has done that's really smart, and you at Aconite have done, is keeping a stronghold of which characters can be written about in this format, because there are so many other things going on in the Marvel universe. And so getting to see some of those characters that don't get as much page time keeps you from having that problem. Whereas playing with some of the bigger guns, like I just finished drafting my Avengers book, and it was like, I have to be really careful that I don't muck up Doctor Strange. That would be bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's already been killed by Johnny Blaze. We gotta be nice to him now.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Crisis Protocol one allows us to play with the big characters because they're based on the miniatures game.
Yes.
But yeah, everything else is like, nope, don't play with them. Put those toys away. Play with some of the other ones that no one ever touches.
Well, and it's stuff like the Marvel horror universe doesn't get as much love as I think it deserves, because there's some excellent characters there. Like, you could do an entire series of just Marvel horror full of characters that I mean, they appeared and now they're gone.
Yep. I was reading about the Marvel zombie series as well and I was just like, this is such a cool series. I want to do some zombie stories, please. That was so good.
I want to do zombies, and I want to do horror Avengers. Put them all together and have them fight horror, scary, monstery things.
Yes, scribblies.
Yes. Very spooky.
So Graham asks, is there a Marvel character team storyline that you'd love to cover?
Gosh, how long do we have? I mean, I'd love to do the Marvel horror. I'd love to do more Marvel horror in general. I really have a deep love for Kitty Pryde. I've talked about this a bunch of times. And here, look, I got a Kitty Pryde.
I saw it on your Twitter. It's so cute.
Yeah, she's so cute. Okay. So I'd love to do her. I'd love to do Emma Frost. Like some of the characters who have been a part of the bigger teams but have never had a chance to star in their own story. That's where I like to be.
Yeah.
Spend some time with the people we don't know as well.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, and for me, I really like that sort of side of it, because I haven't grown up with the comics. I only know from the films. If it's not a film, then I don't even know the names of these people. Luckily, this one's a film, and I watched it. Luckily. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, well, and the film is definitely an interpretation of Johnny Blaze. Yes, Emma. I really want Emma. Emma bad.
So Sam asks again, do you think traditional books have some inherent advantage to storytelling over the comics? I imagine describing set-piece battles might be a tad harder to compete with comics and movies, but the characters?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And when I started writing for Aconite, one of the first things I did was I sat down and I thought, okay, every Marvel thing that I've consumed has had its own strengths. Like you get a different thing from the comics than you do from the movies. And you get a different thing from both of those than you do from a TV show. So what do books do well? And you get to live inside the character's head. You get to hear what they're thinking. And especially with somebody like Johnny Blaze, who he makes some questionable choices. And not just making a deal with the devil. That's pretty questionable, but it doesn't stop there. And getting to see why he does what he does is really interesting in a novel, and it's something that a novel does that you're not going to get anywhere else. I do think that there are a couple of fight scenes in this book that I would love to see in comic format, just because they are very visual. And I was picturing them like a comic when I was writing it and thinking, oh, this would be a perfect panel. And I really would. So yeah, fight scenes are somewhat different. And there is, I'd love to have a little bit of both.
Yeah. I imagine there'll be more sort of fight scenes in the Marvel Crisis Protocol one, because it's sort of set around sort of set pieces and battles, isn't it? So as a sort of a way of writing. So that we'll come back to that when Shadow Adventures comes out. You can re-answer that question.
Pause.
So outside of Marvel, are there any specific stories or authors or non-literary influences that helped you with this novel?
With this one, I mean, I will admit I did watch the Ghost Rider movie. We talked about it once. It's very Nick Cagey.
Yes.
I know a lot of diehard Ghost Rider fans are not necessarily fans of the movies. But I think if you watch it as a Nick Cage movie that's also kind of tangentially about Ghost Rider, it's fun.
Yeah.
But other influences, I'm not sure. Well, actually, one of the other influences was last year, right around the time that I was pitching this, I went to a vampire circus.
Oh.
Or maybe it couldn't have been last year. I don't know. Sometime.
Last year didn't even exist, so who knows?
COVID times, everything blurred. So sometime in my past, I went to a vampire circus. So as I was pitching this, I kept thinking about this circus, and it was the show was like people dressed up in goth wear and like witches and vampires and things like that, and like hanging from the ceiling on silk and spinning around and doing trapeze stuff, and then there was one woman who hung in the air and she did hula hoops, like 6 of them as she was hanging in midair, and then a woman who hung by her hair, like she had a ponytail and she strung herself up and then did like spinny around acrobatic-y bits, all well dressed like a ghost.
That's cool. That sounds awesome. Yeah. I want to go to that.
Yeah. So there's a bit about a monster circus. And I thought that was very fitting for these characters to go fight evil at the vampire circus.
Siobhan just says, thinking of a good question, but absolutely love the book and seeing some amazing characters brought to life. Yay. Okay, if Marvel decided they were going to make a film of your novel, who would you like to be cast as Ghost Rider and the witches?
Okay, so this is difficult because I know a lot of authors cast their characters, right?
Yeah.
And they'll put up photographs of who they want to play each character, and I don't do that. Partially, I think because with these characters, I'm picturing comics characters.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can't tell you Johnny because I think Johnny is an easy one. Keanu.
Nice.
It's got to be Keanu because, you know, he did Constantine so well, which I want more Constantine, damn it. And I'm sad that there isn't more of it. But, and then between that and John Wick, he does everything that Johnny needs to do. He fights weird, mystical, dark crap. And he's dramatic about it. And he does a lot of tortured, you know, emotional conflict. And also he kicks a lot of butt. And he can ride a motorcycle.
I would watch this film.
Yeah. As for the other ones,
can I be a witch? Can it be me?
Yes, you and me.
Yes.
We will be some of them, and then Lottie can be the third
Yeah.
one. He edited the book, and so that's us, and we'll just be in a movie with Keanu.
That sounds amazing. And Marvel, I hope you're watching and you can sort it out for us. Make that happen. Right. Kaiser says, who has been your favorite character to ever write, and who's your favorite character you haven't written yet?
Gosh, I'm kind of fickle. You know, because it depends on what I have written most recently. So most recently, I just finished writing the Avengers, and I can say this one because he's in the blurb, because some of the characters in the book are not in the blurb, but Loki is in that book, and I adore Loki with the Fire of 1,000 Suns, and so getting to write him in that book was a particular
yeah,
I
can imagine that would have been quite fun to write the trickster god in.
Yeah. Well, he's so polite as he's stabbing you in the back, you know, and charming about it. Like, kind of
you always want to thank him for it.
Yeah. My favorite that I haven't written yet is probably Kitty Pryde, unless you count my junior high fanfic.
So the next story that you have is Depowered, which is in our School of X anthology, and features again Tempest and Triage, who we met before in Liberty and Justice for All. What was it like bringing them back to the pages?
Very, very surreal. Getting to revisit them, especially since Liberty and Justice for All happens right before a huge moment for Tempest, in which she travels through time and gets stuck. So the Tempest of Depowered is very different from the Tempest of Liberty and Justice, because now she's like 15 years older, even though it's been only a couple of weeks.
That is cool.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that I liked about Depowered was that we got to bring some other characters into the Institute looking for help, and there's some fan favorites. I actually don't know if they're in the description, so maybe I shouldn't say who they are.
I think they are, and I just haven't written them down. I'm pretty sure I read on our website who they are. Yes, say them this way.
So it's safe to say?
Yes.
I don't want to get in big trouble. I'm terrified.
It's safe to say.
So Danny Moonstar and Polaris show up, and they're looking for help. And there are two of my favorite X-Men, and putting them together was really fun. And then they're going to the Institute for help because M-Day did not do them any favors.
No.
So.
Right. One question here. Do you visualize your story in a certain art direction, like a comic book artist, colorist, or in a film director's style?
A little bit of both. Normally, when I'm writing my own stuff, I picture my books, especially the action scenes, like it's a film. But given that these books are specifically linked to the comics rather than the Marvel Cinematic Universe,
yeah,
I think that's a real touchstone that I'm trying to make it, trying to evoke, so that it feels like a part of that story.
Yeah.
And then when I was writing Avengers, which is more linked to to a game and a little bit closer to the cinematic universe, I think, the touchstones change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we're coming almost to the end of this talk. This 35 minutes flew by really fast.
Yeah. That's because I'm long-winded.
Because we get to talk about fun things.
Yes.
So we are talking about Witches Unleashed. And that is out today in paperback in the US and ebook globally. It's out in the UK in February. Fingers crossed for the shipping crisis and that it is going to be February. And I'm not going to be on here sobbing in February because it's still not with us. It'll be fine. It will be here. Positive thinking, everyone. Positive thinking. So if anyone has any quick questions, please do pop them in the chat very quickly now, and we'll get to them before we sign off. But do you have anything else that you would like to plug while we're here? Any other books, any other things going on with you?
Well, right before Halloween, I did also have Elder God Dance Squad come out. That's right behind my head. Where am I pointing?
Yeah,
there.
It's backwards, the stupid.
That's harder than it looks. So Elder God Dance Squad is about eldritch Cthulhu-like creatures climbing up from underneath a school, and the dance squad that has to have a dance battle to save the world against them. So if you're looking for something else to read and you have read all of the excellent Aconite titles, may I suggest that? Yeah. Oh, hey, that worked really well. Yes, it does.
Yes.
He's gorgeous.
Well then, no more questions are coming to the chat. So chat, thank you very much everyone for coming along and for watching and for asking questions. It's been really nice to talk to you. We do this a lot. Next week we've got 2, I think, going on. Hopefully we should be talking to Anna Stevens about The Serpent and the Dead, which is our Marvel Legends of Asgard, featuring Lady Sif and Valkyrie. And then we should have, I don't know, let me look on my list. It's right here and I can't see it. Then we have Amanda Bridgman coming along to talk about Pandemic Patient Zero. That will be, if you're in the UK, it'll be a very early one. We might just pre-record it and then put it out at a later date because she is in Australia. So 10 a.m. for her, me is 8 p.m. for her. So we it may not be a live one, I'm afraid. But yes, thank you everyone for coming along. Carrie, as always, it's wonderful to talk to you, and I missed your face, and I'm very happy to see you.
I know. We have to do a thing
next year. Oh, we're going to come traveling and we're going to see people. There's going to be some Comic-Cons. There's going to be some Gen Cons. I'm really excited. Yeah. So we've got big plans for like next year. So we will come and see people and hang out and do some in real life panels and stuff.
I will be there with bells on, maybe Perfect. Literally.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting. Cosplay with bells.
Jingle, jingle.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for coming along. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you next week for our next one. Bye-bye.